And as we secure our borders, we will also rescue our horrendous, you saw the numbers on Thursday, horrendous economy. Yes, it's that bad. I always said that if it's going to happen, let it happen on their terms. The numbers were the worst that I've ever seen. 4 years of Kamala and Sleepy Joe have delivered nothing but economic hell for American workers. Her inflation disasters made life unaffordable and cost families over $30,000 a year in higher prices. That's inflation. That's what it's done. You know, inflation in a lot of quarters is called a country buster. It's a country buster. It busted Germany many, many years ago. Germany was busted with rampant inflation. It's a country breaker, country buster like almost nothing else. And yet, it's number one rated on the polls, inflation and the economy. And what you just saw with beautiful, beautiful Jocelyn, Mimi, and Carmen, what you just saw is number two. No, I don't think so. I think number one is stopping these people from destroying our country and stopping them right now. We'll handle inflation. We'll handle inflation. You know how we're going to handle it. We're going to drill. We're going to get energy costs so low. We're going to get you. We have more than any other country. More oil and gas. I call it liquid gold. That's what it is. That's why I say, Bobby, please enjoy yourself. Just leave the liquid gold to me, please. We're going to pay off debt. We're going to reduce your taxes still further. They got the biggest tax cut ever, biggest regulation cuts ever. We had a great administration. And I will say that I got you into no wars with countries that you've never heard of. And yet I defeated ISIS. I rebuilt our military and I defeated ISIS in about 4 years less than these stupid generals like Milley and Kelly and Mattis. Sir, it'll take approximately 5 years to defeat ISIS. How about we did it in about 4 weeks? With the real generals. Just this week, we had the worst jobs report in modern history. So the reason I put it second on the list is I wanted you to meet these incredible mothers and these unbelievable families that are just decimated because it's number one. It will always be number one to me because I'm good at this stuff. I'll handle inflation. You'll be making so much money. All of a sudden, it'll just be beautiful. Because if we get your energy costs and your interest rates and a couple of things down, it'll be even better than it was. You know, we had the greatest, strongest economy in the history of our country. We're going to do it again, but even better. And now I know Washington. Now I know, because I went to Washington very few times in my life. I didn't know anybody. Think of that. I became president of the United States and I didn't know anybody in Washington. That's a problem. So I had to rely on rhinos and some others and some very good people too. And we had a lot of great people. Look, our trade deals have been unbelievable. Nobody can believe it even. And so many other things. Our right to try, one of the greatest things, right to try. We got so much done. All the regulation cuts. We approved more regulation cuts than any president in history times 5. That's why you had the great job. That's why you had the great job numbers. And it's really why we were the envy of the world. We were going at levels that nobody's ever seen. We got hit by the China virus and we took care of it. We did a great job. You know, we turned it over with the stock market higher than it was previous to the virus coming in. I mean, it was sort of an amazing thing. Nobody had ever heard about this. Nobody knew anything about it. All we knew that all over the world, lots of people were dying, and we did a great job. Never got credit for that. Got credit for the great economy. Got credit for knocking out ISIS and having no wars. I'm the only president in 82 years that had no wars. Remember crooked Hillary Clinton? She said, look at him, he'll create wars. Look at him, look at his attitude. Look at him, he's going to create wars. I said, no, my attitude is going to keep us out of wars. And that's what happened because they respected us. They respected us. But just this week, we had the worst jobs report in modern history, with only 12,000 anemic jobs created, and much of that was government jobs. We had nothing. You know, usually we hear 200,000 jobs were created, 250, 300, 350, 190, 100, 12,000. And they thought they could hold this report till after the election. And somebody released it, a whistleblower or somebody released it. But they released something far more sinister, because if you go back a few weeks, you remember they created 818,000 fake jobs. They didn't exist, and they put them down as though they did. So that instead of having today's problem, which is 12,000, which is like terrible, it looked okay. Not great, but it looked okay. So they created 818,000 fake jobs, and it was revealed 2 weeks ago, and the fake news media hardly picked it up. What a shame. That's a lot of fake news. Look at that. That's a lot. Wow. That's a lot of fake news, Mr. Chairman. That's a lot, huh? I can't believe it. You know, they hate me, but ratings predominate. For the networks, ratings predominate over hate. But think of what they did. 818,000 fake. And then last week they had to revise the figures from the previous month, 112,000. So that's almost 1 million fake jobs. I call them fraudulent. Fake isn't strong enough. And they did that hoping that all of you people wouldn't have a chance to see before you pull the lever on Tuesday. But a whistleblower released the information on the 800,000 jobs plus. The whistleblower said, you know, there were not 800,000 and 18,000. You add them up, and then you add 100, think of it, 112,000 jobs. So you're close to 1 million jobs. And the whistleblower, I never loved the idea of whistleblowing, but in this case, I liked it very much. But they thought it would be very unfair to go through an election. Somebody was being fair. They thought it would be very unfair. Could you imagine if those numbers, we have the election, and let's say there's a bad result, and then 3 days later they say that almost 1 million jobs were not created. I mean, we would say they were fraudulent. They were fraudulent, by the way. If that were a Republican doing that, they'd probably be in jail by now. But you also had 30,000 private sector jobs that were killed in a single month, and nearly 100,000 manufacturing jobs. This just came out on Thursday, that were wiped out since the start of the year. And those manufacturing jobs, they're important to us as a country. 150,000 Americans joined the unemployment rolls in October, close to a record. And nearly 250,000 people dropped out of the labor force. Can you believe this? And these are the numbers. And I did say that if they've got to be released, let them release it before the election. These numbers are all public. They've been released. Meanwhile, a statistic that a lot of people are going to hate hearing, but that's the way it is. Meanwhile, 100% of the net jobs created in the last year have gone to migrants. The migrants have gotten every single job plus that was created. Illegal here. Many of them are illegal, and many of them are murderers, and many of them are terrorists. I mean, they're taking the job. And you know who they're taking the jobs from? The black population mostly. It'll start hitting the Hispanic population. But right now, and the other thing that you should demand, everybody in this room should demand it in front of the fake news right now. They should demand it because they put no pressure on these crooked politicians. You should demand that they give you the numbers of how many black people are going to lose their job. The African American population, they're getting fired at numbers that we have never seen before, and migrants that are here illegally are coming in and taking their job, and they have homes and mortgages and they have things to pay and they've worked there for 10 and 15 and 20 years and they're losing their jobs. And frankly, the Hispanic are next. I hear that that's what's happening. But the Hispanics are next. And unions are going to be seriously affected too, very seriously. The unions know that this is a big problem. So think of what they've done. They've allowed people to come in by the millions, 21 million people. I think it's much more than that. And then you have the gotaways. You know what the gotaways are? That's the people that don't want to be looked at all. So they're worse than the people we're seeing. That's why they don't want to be looked at. These are depression-type numbers, 1929 depression-type numbers. And I never wanted to be, I always told people, I would have hated to be the President of the United States in 1929 when you had the Great Depression. Herbert Hoover, I would not want to be Herbert Hoover. What a time that was. People jumping off buildings. And that's where we're headed because we have leadership that's incompetent. We have low IQ people, and we need very, very, very high IQ people. Under my leadership, we are quickly going to turn this economic nightmare into an economic miracle. Wait till you see how fast we're going to get it going. We'll get the prices down. Don't forget, you could stop inflation, but the bacon is still at the all-time high, and the lettuce and the apples. There's a story that should never happen in this country. An old woman goes into the grocery store, and she takes 3 apples. That's what she lives on. And she brings it up to the counter, and then they tell her the price of the apples. And she says, I'm sorry. And she takes 1 apple and brings it back to the refrigeration area, puts it back in, and comes and pays for 2 apples. This should never be happening in our country. This should never be happening. We will make America wealthy again, and we will make America affordable again. Big problem. So we're 2 days away from the best jobs and the biggest paychecks and the brightest economic future the world has ever seen. Kamala talks about fixing the economy, but why doesn't she do it? She said the other night, yes, I'm going to fix the economy. Why the hell don't you do it? She's always saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. The best was today, though. She was going to fix something else. When I get into office in January, do it now. What are you waiting for? It's all a big con. She's not going to do anything. She's incapable of doing it. Kamala's plan will impose the largest tax hike in American history and raise taxes on the typical American family of 4 or 5 by more than $3,000 a year. Congratulations. You know, all my life, I've always found politics fascinating. I never knew I'd be a politician. I still like to try and get away with saying I'm not. But I guess after 9 years, I guess I am. It's all right. But you know, all my life, I've watched politicians run for office. And all my life, they've been talking about cutting taxes. We will cut taxes. We will cut taxes. And oftentimes it turned out, frankly, they weren't able to do it, or it wasn't true, but they turned out. But I've never seen a politician run and say, we're going to raise your taxes and have people vote for them. We are going to raise your taxes. You're paying far too much already. And we are going to cut your taxes substantially, and it's going to be helped by lowering interest and by oil and gas. And by the worst, and by the most beautiful word in history, tariff. We're going to tariff the hell out of countries that have been taking advantage of us and stealing our jobs, stealing our companies.